look at it. So foul there on Indiana. On hold there. But then that is a technical.
That is a technical. Dead ball, contact technical.
It's a little surprising to see so many of these happen in one game because...
Oh, and I don't like the way Lexie...
The Indiana Fever rolled into Minnesota already crippled. 5 players sidelined. CaitlinClark, Sophie Cunningham, Chloe BBY, Sydney Colson, and Ari McDonald. Odyssey Sims could barely walk, but still suited up just to keep the team alive. And then came the biggest gut punch of the night. Lexie Hull takes an elbow to the face from Kayla McBride, and somehow she gets called for the foul. Clark is livid on the sidelines, and you can't blame her. How does this keep happening? The injuries are already stacking the deck against the Fever, but now the officiating looks just as bad. Do you think the refs are targeting Indiana? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's get into it.
Every time a game happens in the WNBA, somebody's getting used, somebody's getting beaten, somebody is getting hurt. Somebody is getting hurt every game in the WNBA. They just fail to realize, fail to have any protocol on stopping the nut.
Imagine stepping onto the floor against one of the league's toughest opponents with more than half your roster missing. That's not hyperbole. That's exactly what Indiana was up against. CaitlinClark had been sidelined for over a month with a groin injury. Sophie Cunningham lost for the season with an MCL tear. Chloe BBY battling a knee issue. Sydney Colson done for the year with a torn ACL. Ari McDonald out with a foot injury. That's 5 players gone. Odyssey Sims, a hardship signing, essentially the backup to the backup to the backup for Clark, was nowhere near full strength. Yet with the Fever so thin, she forced herself onto the floor anyway. Reading that injury list is exhausting. Competing with it, that's a professional nightmare.
The Indiana Fever's injury bug is getting into school territory. It seems like there's a new player every single day that's getting injured. Right now they have CaitlinClark out, not sure if she will be returning this season. Sid Colson out with a season-ending ACL tear. Gary McDonald out with a season-ending fracture in the foot. Sophie Cunningham out with a season-ending MCL tear. And then just today, before the game, they announced that Chloe Biddy would be out with a knee injury, and basically they just said it's soreness and they're just playing it safe.
This avalanche of injuries didn't just rob Indiana of its stars, it shattered the very foundation of their rotations. Entire layers of wing and guard depth were wiped out overnight, forcing players like Lexie Hull and Kelsey Mitchell to shoulder impossible workloads. Just 2 nights ago, also against Minnesota, Hull logged a career-high 37 minutes and dropped 23 points. Not because it was a breakout showcase, but because there was simply no one else left to step in. That wasn't luxury production, it was survival. When every starter is asked to give more than they ever have, every trip down the floor feels like climbing a mountain. Hull has the talent to put up those numbers, no question, but leaning on her, and every other starter, for heavy minutes night after night is a burden no roster can carry for long.
Lexie, you come into tonight kind of expecting to play or near the full game, just with the injury situation and the personnel available?
I mean, you played a lot of people. You played 35. I mean, yeah, we're down people, so gotta suck it up, play a little tired in a few minutes, and take in those timeouts as best we can. But yeah, when you're down people, so it's gonna be a little fun.
Indiana's patchwork solution has been hardship contracts, emergency signings brought in simply to keep the roster afloat. Players barely have time to unpack their bags before being thrown into the rotation. Odyssey Sims, already battling her own injuries, was suddenly expected to provide stability. Aerial Powers was another late addition, forced straight into heavy minutes without the benefit of chemistry or rhythm with her teammates. One by one, these stopgap players were handed critical roles with zero preparation and immediately pushed into the fire. The result is brutal for team cohesion, a lineup trying to build trust and timing on the fly, while opponents ruthlessly pick apart every weakness.
We've had 3 players in the last I don't know how many days, and 2 of those players are point guards, so not really. But you know, at the same time, our ability to make plays out of what we have, right? I think a lot of our spacing allows players to do what they do best, creates opportunities for them to to be successful, and then it's just making the right reads and finding the right pass, on time, on target. And some of that is experience with your teammates, and some of that is instinct. And so we are trying to do as much as we can to put players in position to use those instincts.
Even head coach Stephanie White admitted the physicality Indiana faced was more than this short-handed roster could withstand. And more might be putting it mildly. Every drive, every defensive stand drained maximum energy from a lineup already stretched to its breaking point. Yet Kelsey Mitchell still fought to keep the Fever alive. She dropped 26 points, battled through traps, and had stretches where it looked like she might single-handedly carry the team. That's superstar-level grit. But when the rest of your offense is patched together with emergency signings and players thrust into roles they weren't built for, there's only so far one player can drag you.
At this rate, the Fever are going to end the season with a completely different team than what they started the season with. And even the players that they're bringing in on hardship or that they're signing midway through the season, they're now going down. The season from hell would be an understatement on this team right now.
This loss wasn't about effort, it was about survival. The Fever fought with grit through a nightmare scenario, refusing to quit despite being outmanned at every position. But as brutal as the injuries were, they weren't the biggest blow of the night. The referees made sure of that.
Here's Mitchell. I think that's a 2. Doesn't go. And now it's McBride getting pulled. That one might be a problem. Indiana just taking shots to the face.
What happens when even the referees become part of the problem? That's exactly what Indiana faced. Lexie Hull, already logging exhausting minutes, was grinding on defense when Kayla McBride swung through and caught her with a sharp elbow to the face. Hull went down hard, clutching her face, and for anyone watching, the call seemed obvious. Clear, textbook flagrant contact. But instead of penalizing McBride, the officials somehow whistled Hull for the foul. The player who absorbed the elbow was punished as if she caused it. The decision stunned the arena and left fans buzzing in disbelief.
And Hull is checking her jaw. See that one again. Kayla McBride goes up, grabs the board. She wants to get free because Hull has her kind of wrapped.
Fans and analysts expected the review to fix a mistake, but instead, it only made things worse. On slow motion, the foul was slightly upgraded, yet McBride was never fully held accountable. It was as if the officials admitted something went wrong, but still refused to assign blame where it clearly belonged. Hull took clear contact to the face, hit the floor in pain, and somehow it was Indiana that paid the price. How do you even begin to justify that?
Boom! Right there. Oh my goodness. Boom! Right in the face. Right in the face. Now, like I said, I get it, you might be mad. Lexie put her hand on your forehead. But fam, there is no reason to do it. Throwing elbows to somebody's face. Come on, man. Throwing elbows to the face.
Fever fans erupted across social media, furious over what they saw as more than just a blown call. Was this an isolated mistake, or has it become a pattern of Indiana being officiated differently? Time and again, when a Fever player takes a hard shot, whether it's a shove, a body blow, or an elbow to the face, the whistle rarely seems to go their way. The perception is growing that the league is turning a blind eye, allowing opponents to crank up the physicality as long as it's Indiana on the receiving end. With players already dropping like flies to injuries, the outrage only intensifies. Because if you're down half your roster, the last thing you can afford is the referees piling on.
Kayla McBride, 13 points for Kayla McBride. Hit Lexie Hull with an elbow. Foul on Lexie Hull. Hits Lexie Hull with an elbow, foul on Lexie Hull.
Minnesota leaned on physical play all night, and to be clear, there's nothing illegal about that. Plenty of teams use toughness as a weapon. The problem came when Indiana's pushback wasn't given the same whistle. Head coach Stephanie White even hinted the game was officiated on 2 different scales, a careful way of saying her team wasn't treated equally. And anyone watching could see it. Fever guards drove into contact with no call, while a bump on the other end instantly drew a whistle. With every inconsistency, the frustration boiled higher, from the players on the floor to the fans in the stands.
This was intentional. Now, if it wasn't intentional, okay, give it a flagrant. I understand it. She wasn't trying to do it. Cool. But this was intentional. All right? She had malice in the heart. Bad intention. Okay? She was trying to wreck some stuff up there doing this. Hey, let's just keep it a grand. Taylor McBride was trying to knock Lexie right on her booty cheek, which she succeeded at, man. Knocked her clean out. Look at this.
This wasn't just a miscall. It felt like something bigger. To Indiana, it looked like proof that the system itself was tilted against them. That officiating bias wasn't accidental, but another obstacle they had to battle every single night. And yet, instead of folding under the weight of that injustice, the short-handed Fever dug in, fighting back and leaning on unlikely heroes to keep their season alive.
Knocked her clean out, man. Oh my goodness. I mean, folded. Look at how her legs are folded right here. Come on, man. Knocking her clean out right here. That was bad intention. I don't care what anybody says. That was bad intention. And the refs have to do something. You have to make sure that players don't feel comfortable getting out of pocket and doing things.
Most teams missing half their roster would fold early, but not Indiana. Instead of collapsing under the weight of injuries and questionable officiating, they fought back with everything they had. Once again, Kelsey Mitchell carried the load, dropping 26 points and answering every Minnesota run until she simply ran out of gas. She was the offensive lifeline, keeping the Fever alive in a game where every possession felt like survival. Without her shot-making and relentless drives, this could have gotten ugly fast. But Mitchell refused to let it happen, setting the tone with her aggression and sheer will to attack, even when the whistles weren't in her favor.
Indiana started this game 9 of 13, but has missed 4 straight until Shea Petty.
The real surprise came from Shea Petty, who had barely set foot in Indiana before being thrown into major minutes. Most hardship signings fade quietly into the background, but not Petty. She came off the bench and lit it up with 16 points, playing like she'd been in the system all season. No rhythm, no chemistry, no time to adjust, and yet she stepped straight into a vital offensive role. For a player signed as an emergency stopgap, she looked less like a placeholder, more like someone who belonged.
Reaction looked like it was a lot more violent than that. It still gotta hurt though. The pass from Williams. Oh, Collier is blocked.
Aaliyah Boston anchored the other end of the floor. Even while being doubled, bumped, and botted all night, she stayed active on defense and refused to let the Lynx control the paint. Her relentless work on the boards gave Indiana second chances and stabilized a defense that was hanging on by threads. Boston didn't need flashy scoring to make her mark. Her composure and toughness were the anchor a patchwork roster desperately needed. And she wasn't alone. Just a game earlier, Lexie Hull poured in 23 points over 37 minutes. Not a season highlight on paper, but in context, a massive lift from a player not usually asked to carry that kind of load. Hull's willingness to embrace a bigger role in the chaos gave Indiana room to breathe. Add in aerial powers, another late signing thrust into significant minutes after Cunningham's injury, and it's clear, every piece of this roster had been stretched beyond its limits just to keep the Fever moving forward.
Dribble. Carrington got a piece of it. Powers gets it back. Second attempt. Up and in. And she's fouled. The basket. And then she's just fighting and battling for her shot.
That's why fans can't help but dream about what happens once CaitlinClark returns. If a patched-together roster full of hardship signings can push playoff-caliber teams to the brink, imagine the impact of a fully healthy backcourt. The answer seems obvious. Right now, Indiana sits clinging to 8th place, every game carrying the weight of a playoff battle. Their fight hasn't wavered, but everyone knows there's one player who can completely alter the trajectory of this season. And that's why all eyes turn to the biggest question: when will CaitlinClark be back on the floor? There's one player who can pull the Fever out of this spiral, and fans finally caught a glimpse of her return. CaitlinClark was back on the practice floor in Minnesota, still not cleared to play, but moving with her teammates again. That sight alone changed the atmosphere around the team. After weeks stuck on the sidelines, simply joining shoot-around felt like the first spark of a turning point. For a roster beaten down by injuries and inconsistency, seeing her back in uniform wasn't just encouraging, it was a lifeline.
The team needs CaitlinClark to come back in the work way. Not only if they want to save this, if they want to even play in mid to late. This isn't a playoff team. This isn't a playoff team. This is a Kelsey Mitchell, please save us. Kelsey Mitchell, we need 40 and 10. 40 points, 10 assists from you every night to be in the playoffs. We need a Herculean effort in the second half. We need Lexie Hull catching fire late in the fourth quarter and in overtime for this team to continue to stay in the playoffs.
Her return can't come soon enough. The Fever are hanging on to the 8th seed by a thread. Sitting at 19-18 after the Minnesota loss, a single game ahead of the Sparks with just 7 left on the schedule. And the road ahead is brutal. Seattle, Golden State, Chicago, and Los Angeles all await, each matchup a playoff-level battle with zero margin for error. Every slip risks Indiana tumbling out of the picture entirely. That's the urgency now. Time isn't on their side, and waiting is no longer an option.
We got our best indication yet that CaitlinClark is on her way back for a return for the Indiana Fever. That's because she was seen participating in shoot-around for the Minnesota Lynx game. Now, that doesn't mean she's playing. She's still out for that game, and she hasn't returned to full practice yet, but she is back on the court with her teammates. This coming on the heels of Stephanie White saying she hopes that Clark would return to the lineup before the regular season is out, and that when you see her participating in practice, you will know she's on the way back.
The Fever's struggles without Clark are undeniable. There's no true orchestrator, no natural floor general pulling defenders and unlocking the offense. Kelsey Mitchell can pour in points, and Aaliyah Boston can hold down the paint, but neither can dictate the flow the way Clark does. Without her, every possession feels disjointed, as if the pieces are moving without direction. The hardship signings have brought energy, but they can only patch so much. That's why every glimpse of Clark has become an obsession for fans. A warm-up jumper, a practice dribble, even her body language sparks endless breakdowns on social media. It's not just excitement, it's tension. With the playoff race tightening and Indiana clinging just ahead of Los Angeles, the margin is razor thin. Without Clark back soon, that lead could vanish in a week.
So you see CaitlinClark, this video captured by Chloe Peterson, at shoot-around. You can see Caitlin doing some work right there, just, warm-up work, back and forth on the court, but nonetheless on the court. It's been a long time since we've seen CaitlinClark on a basketball court. Certainly a long time since we've seen CaitlinClark play basketball. Then there was a little bit more footage here. You see Caitlin involved on the floor yet again, even handling the ball, working with her teammates. I mean, that's an important sign there, to see her working with her teammates.
What Clark brings isn't just scoring. She makes Boston's life easier inside, opens lanes for Mitchell, and brings order to the chaos, transforming Indiana back into a team that looks like it belongs in the playoffs. No hardship signing or patchwork lineup can replicate that. Her return isn't just another injured player coming back. It could be the difference between a playoff push or packing up early. The anticipation is building, the fans are restless, and the stakes couldn't be higher. But the question remains, can even CaitlinClark overcome everything stacked against this team? Because the Fever aren't just battling opponents, they're fighting injuries, short-handed rotations, and calls that never seem to fall their way. That pressure takes a toll both physically and mentally. You can see it on the players' faces and feel it in the fan frustration online. So now the spotlight is on Clark's return. Is it enough to lift Indiana through the storm? One thing is certain, the fight this team has shown won't be forgotten, especially if resilience is what drags them into the postseason. Do you think the referees have it out for the Fever? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Click the video on your screen, and we'll see you there.